To start the recording. Wonderful. So, good morning to all. Thank you so much. We are really, really honored today to host Dr. Luís Miguel Nunes, a professor at the University of Lisbon and the co-author of the book chapter Preservation and Digital Repositories, Connections, Possibilities, and Needs. Thank you for joining us today. And our own Dr. Alicia Wise, our Executive Director from CLOCKSS. What we will try to do today through our conversation between Alicia and Dr. Nuance is to discuss a little bit on the topics of repositories, digital preservation, and how they work together to protect our scholarly and cultural records. We're hoping for a dynamic panel discussion and, of course, to engage in questions from you. But let's start by having Dr. Luís introduce yourself to our
Yeah.
audience.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm currently professor and a researcher at the University of Lisbon in Portugal. So I dabble, or better, I research in the areas of digital preservation, digital repositories, and the social technical elements regarding these aspects. Of course, it has to do with my previous background regarding history, archival practice, and archival science. And so it is wonderful so
Yeah.
that you find the time to read our paper.
Yeah,
Or
no, it was a interesting book chapter and really fascinating. A lot of themes in that book chapter that we want to
yeah.
discuss with you today. But let me move it to Alicia to introduce herself to our audience. We have audience from all over the world today. Alicia?
Hi there, everybody. I'm Alicia Wise from CLOCKSS. Now, I'm not formally trained in archival science, unlike Louise, so I'm looking forward to learning more today and to learning how institutional repositories in different parts of the world are facilitating access to information in the present, but also actively doing long-term digital preservation or thinking about roles in this space. So it's an honor to learn and to talk with you, Luis. Looking forward to this very much. And thank you, Gally, for organizing us.
Thank you both. Thank you both. So, Dr. Rees, let's start with you. The book chapter is quite extensive. You have a lot of themes there, you and your co-authors. One of the things that came up was you distinguish between digital preservation and digital curation. Could you tell us a little bit about, through your research, through the writing, what did you find? We have repositories, we have preservation. What are the differences between digital preservation and digital curation in your view, or what did you find?
um, I think digital preservation is regards more the set of managed activities that ensure long-term access and authenticity of digital information. It is independent of any changes regarding hardware, software, or even formats. So the aim of digital preservation is that the information, the data is continually usable over time, and of course it regards with the capacity to maintain integrity and authenticity. Digital curation is a broader aspect. It's more holistic life cycle approach, if you allow me. Even the digital, the DCC model emphasizes this. So the Digital Curation Center model emphasizes this life cycle approach, and that includes not only the preservation part, but also the maintenance, the enhancement, and enabling the reuse of data or any content from a conceptual point of view, including transformation and reusing for the data for aspects that were not thought about when it was registered.
Right. That is really the big difference. And Alicia, can we hear a little bit, because I know, at CLOCKSS we focus on long-term preservation, just what Luis said, that things will be usable moving forward. So how do you see CLOCKSS like complementing the digital curation work? And then, that happens within the institutional repositories, because they're also very important.
Absolutely. So digital curation, just as Louis said, is about lifecycle management. It's about how you digitize or create born digital content, how you describe that with metadata, how you manage the content and metadata over time, how you make that accessible. And so preservation is one step in that life cycle. It's an important step, actually. But oftentimes, data curators, content curators, don't think clearly about the specific in-depth requirements for preservation. There are many demands and challenges at every stage in the content lifecycle. At CLOCKSS, we have an easier job in some ways. All we do is the preservation piece. So we're not the people selecting content to curate or to make available. We're not providing access in the current period. We are making sure that the content which is deposited with us for preservation is maintained exactly as it was deposited. And so there's an authentic copy that's really carefully protected in 12 geographically distributed vaults in different parts of the world. And so that authentic copy stays. And then we take responsibility for evolving and migrating that content so that when it is made available from the archive, it remains usable for future researchers or other people who want to access and benefit from it.
Right. And I wanted to go a little bit into the book chapter. Dr. Luis, you and your co-authors mentioned that there's a crucial part to this, which is the planning, right? Like the planning stage. You say that, you highlight the importance of, preservation planning. So what do you think are, to our audience out there that have repositories that are maintaining them, what would you say are the essential elements in a preservation plan? Where should they start? What should they do in order to make sure preservation is done in a consistent way?
Yes. Well, first of all, we have to make some choices, because inherently preservation and curation can't be done to all the information that is provided, created. So we have to define to delimit some elements. And usually, as Alicia told, it is a little bit difficult to answer to these questions if we don't have a high level element that help us translate into a more operational workflow and measurable actions. And for instance, we have to define a scope, a designated community, and this community has to be able to use the content, and it depends on the conditions, and we have to address also the question that the community is not static. It is dynamic. For instance, 30 years ago, people were still able to use non-graphical operative systems, such as the DOS, and today they don't know what that means. They don't know how to work with a diskette or and as such, we have to find ways so that that information can be translated into current technological apparatus. So this means that you have to perform some characterization of the objects, the file types, databases, their significant properties, dependencies, considering physical, logical, conceptual aspects. There's also the need to perform risks analysis for risk identification and criteria. We have technological obsolescence, media failure, corruption of data, an ever-changing legal and rights constraints that are always changing. Also, we have to evaluate strategies and the rationale for decision making, and it has to be a well-documented decision making, so that if there's some problem in the future, we have to justify ourselves why have we done those choices and not other ones. So we have to find ways, strategies such why use migration and not emulation or encapsulation, for instance. And this goes also to the need of creating workflows, defining roles, and the question that I think it is one of the most forgotten ones is the accountability question, because we have to know who does what, when, with what, with the expertise needed, and even the escalation paths. So this is not just okay, let's create a platform and let's give people the ability to insert, to have the files and other people to go download it. No, it has to do with the analysis that provide us with the what the future of our platform, of our services have to be, because the client, the citizens, the users, they easily find that the services that we provide become normalized, and so they are asking for more and more. And if 10 years ago it wasn't very there weren't many repositories that worked with mobile internet. Today it's almost 90% of repositories do have some element into it, and the public stays a little strange. Why don't they perform? So that's we have to try to find what they want. Also, we have to keep monitoring and verifying feedback loops. This means ongoing evaluation of outcomes, and we have to revise our planning all the time. Yeah.
Right, right.
And after that, we need to define what documentation for decisions, for creating events, regarding provenance of the information, the tools that were used. And so this also helps for the plan to be auditable and repeatable in other examples or cases. So I think
it's fascinating, and I want to like unpack it a little bit, Alicia and Luis, with both of you, because I think there's a lot of different topics here. So we have to think about, okay, policy, skills, planning, right? Adaptability. There's all these different topics, and I wanted both of you to give our audience a little bit of, okay, let's say I'm a repository manager. I want to move forward with systematic preservation. What should I do? What should I think about? Alicia?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And going back to Luis's first point, this is about thinking through your purpose. What is your purpose in gathering and curating content in your repository system in the first place? And what is your purpose in terms of local skills or where you can partner? So I've popped in the chat a link to the NASIG Model Digital Preservation Policy, which is a free tool that can help your institution have a systematic, structured conversation about what your purpose is. So you know why you're collecting content on your repository and the users you're intending to serve. When you get to the preservation part of the life cycle, you need to think about purpose in a slightly different way. Are you going to preserve every piece of content on your repository in the same way, to the same extent? Or is some of that more important for long-term preservation than others? So for example, say you had digitized books to provide access to out-of-print material. Is your purpose in preserving that just to save the investment in time and energy in doing the digitization rather than being the sole curator of the only digital version of that content? That might warrant less of an intensive investment than where you have digitized some kind of unique special collection that's uniquely held in your institution and is uniquely available on your repository, where of course you want to take preservation much more seriously than the whole of humanity can lose out if that digital copy is lost. So preservation, when I talk to libraries and publishers about preservation, it's often about thinking through what if content in your control needs to be looked after if something happens to you and your organization. What do you need to put in place a will for and a long-term resourcing for? That's the stuff that really needs to be preserved. And sometimes you'll do your preservation locally. That's good stewardship. But to be really secure, the unique content that you're entrusted with needs to be preserved in at least 3 distinct independent ways. And there are a lot of interesting library partnerships and collaboratives that can be useful. I'm thinking, for example, of organizations like Cariniana in Brazil, which provides digital preservation services for many Brazilian and Mexican and other institutions. The AP Trust in the United States is a collective preservation service for repository material in North America. And CLOCKSS and LOCKSS provide services in this space too, though I think that's not as widely known. So be clear on your purpose, figure out what you can and will look after locally because it's also held elsewhere, but with exclusive content that you solely make available, that's the stuff that needs to be in multiple preservation services because the long-term preservation is really mission critical.
Right, right. And I also wanted to talk about a little bit about the skills, right? Luis, if I can draw on your experience, it's when we think about the human effort here, right? So doing preservation doesn't mean, okay, everybody can do the same and the job is the same as doing, depositing, right, in a repository. Can we talk about the human aspect here to our audience who are thinking about preservation? What kind of skills do we need to have within a team thinking about preservation? What kind of skills do we have? And thinking about also technical expertise as well.
Okay. Also, first, I would think that you would need some good literary component regarding the culture and the elements where, or better still, the context of the information that is to be preserved, because we have to analyze the purpose, the meaning for the people that created that information, but also why was it appraised as important to be preserved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And well, there's not a single element or answer to it. So we need to perform some kind of hermeneutics or digital hermeneutics.
Right.
For that, we have to like I said, have a knowledge regarding the culture, the context. So these usually go about the humanities or the arts, I think, element of this work. Now, there are some technical aspects, of course. There's the information professional technical aspects, such as the need for knowledge organization, information representation, and these are skills that are they're not particularly recent, since there is writing and public registers. There has to be some kind of organization of knowledge and ways of represented. So we have the descriptions, we have metadata schemas, and the technical. This is also technical, but is not considered technical as okay. This is information, computer technical aspect. So this needs to be part of integral aspect, because it is independent from the technology that we are using.
Right.
Afterwards, we have to be competent regarding the technological digital aspects, of course, and these go not only regarding the digital information that we are preserving, and then that we need to probably to provide some skills in digital archaeology. So
Right.
we have to go to, oh, yes, this is digital information, but it's from the 1970s. So, okay, how do you get this into 21st century computers?
Right.
And afterwards, we need platform knowledge, digital platforms, and that, of course, since repositories have begun to be created, programmed, they started with basic elements, but soon after they've gone to relational database
Right.
systems. We are now going to NoSQL systems, and we have we are expanding because the information, it's almost impossible to conceptualize in terms of ways to create the design for the platforms. So it is a particular complex aspect, and it is always changing because there's always new paradigms of thought and new paradigms of programming, and then we have to learn how to learn again. So we have to erase what we have, create a tabula rasa for the 11th time, and okay, now I have to learn all from the beginning. And this is this has, to me, it is not only a skill, but it is the need for the people to refresh and put aside their thinking that the I'm sorry the thoughts and the processes that we become used to do are not forever.
Right. Yeah. And Alicia, we have the biggest part of this, right? It's the human factor. So, putting together, right, the expertise and the people and can you comment on that from your experience? How is that playing into the preservation process?
Absolutely. Because I think digital preservation can be misunderstood as primarily about the content. And of course, understanding formats and the nature of the content, the hermeneutics, as Louis said, is important. But actually having a community of practice who cares about that information into the future, and they know what their purpose is, and they have the knowledge broadly within the community, as the International Library community does, about all of the different kinds of content that are relevant and important and will retain their importance. That is profoundly useful. And then the detail of preservation, it takes focus. Those people need to focus on the moment in the content life cycle that they are primarily responsible for. So this is not about collection building through selecting material. It's not about providing access in the present. It's about capturing an authentic original and looking after that so not a single bit or byte migrates over time. So that focus of purpose in practice, to do that well, you have to have pretty sophisticated analytic skills. You need to be able to take any kind of random digital file that comes at you and find a way into it to understand what's in there, how is it structured, how is it labeled, is there metadata, how is that structured? And in my very first job, I think Luis will like this because I used to be an archaeologist, Luis. And I worked in a digital data center for archaeology at the University of York. And literally, people would bring cardboard boxes full of floppy disks. I almost said sloppy disks, which might be how I think about them. But a box of floppy disks with not a single bit of documentation. And they would hand them to me and say, there, thank you for taking my archive. I'm glad you're going to preserve this for me. And it would be a digital archaeology job. We have an object that could read the floppy disk. Could we make sense of its structure? Did it have metadata? Did any of us understand the kind of archaeology well enough to really interpret? Was this a geophysical survey file, or was this a site report, or was it an image of some stratigraphy? And it took a lot of digital sleuthing, actually. So those analytic skills are really important. And then going back to the focus, preservation, capturing what's important to maintain, what is going to be the authentic core. You can't preserve everything. So what is the core that has to be kept together? What's the right format to look after it? And then how does it need to be described? So in 100 or 500 years, we'll continue to be able to migrate it into ever new formats. So I got overexcited there, Gally. I hope that's okay.
No, it's good. It's good. I think it's important. I think one of the things that also, Luis, in your book chapter, you talked about the importance of metadata, the importance of keeping records consistent, right? One thing I wanted to also bring up, and I think, Luis, you are very interested in that, is the role of AI today. And within this kind of a forest of things we have to do. What do you think AI can contribute to maybe alleviate the challenges or maybe being an intermediary function to move from what we have right now into a sustainable preservation? Do you think AI has a role here now in the future to help us do that?
Well, it has AI has all is a world of possibilities.
Yeah, true.
So
Yeah.
we have to look into the ways how how we shall use the AI, because
Yeah.
for instance, we have a trend now regarding AI, but we don't know if with how we will it be continued in the long term, or even in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, if it appears another trend or something else.
Right. Yeah.
But we have some problems regarding the AI content,
Mm-hmm.
because we know AI can help us to program, can help us to find information. There were already machine learning instruments that allowed us to find some particulars that would take about decades to find. But there's also a social convolution regarding AI, especially in the academic world, where
Yes.
most of my colleagues are battling against the bad uses of artificial intelligence. But for instance, how can we provide services to AI information. People do want to create or to devise some type of information, and it asks for a chatbot to create him some type of work art.
Yeah.
Well, that gives us some problems regarding authenticity. For instance, what can we call that? Is it hybrid authorship? Because the AI usually they are products of some corporation, and probably the uses that we make of them might have some limited authorship problem. So, but also the question of traceability. Well, we have to think about what authenticity means. It was already a challenge when digital electronic records were starting to be used, because authenticity in the analogical world means that some information that was registered cannot be changed. But we know that computer files are always changing. And even if we open one Word file, even if we don't know anything, their metadata will be changed, and for all that means the file is changed. This is 101 informatics. So, well, now with the AI, we have to become ask ourselves if authenticity becomes less about identifying a creator, and more about ensuring the traceability. This means documenting the models that were used, the prompts, the training data sets, the parameters, the transformations, and this is not new. Well, we have always had digital platforms that made some kind of interpretation, not considered AI, but they interpreted content. They've performed rankings, filtering, and shaping that data even before we start to use it. So, of course, AI intensifies this in a way that is dramatically. I don't think that there's another word that I could use at the moment. And for this preservation, I think it should record the provenance at the system level, not only the object level, because digital elements were regarded in three elements, mainly the physical, the logical, and the conceptual. But now you have to go further to the system level. Obviously, this is only one of the aspects of
that's there's so much to think about, right? I mean, would I be wrong? I mean, Alicia and Luis, I think there's at least two aspects to think about here, right? So you have AI as an agent that can help us in the process of preservation, maybe processing faster, keeping metadata intact, and so forth. But then we have a whole other aspect now, which is the actual objects and content and things that AI is generating. And whether or not are we going to think about preserving those? Are those authentic enough to preserve? Or are those like fleeting kind of things that it generates, right? So I think there's So Alicia, what do you think?
I agree with both of you. I think there might be a third element as well. Um, and that's in thinking more human considerations
Hmm.
that AIs get people to answers or possible answers without touching on a, a, a curator's website or the collection builder's website without necessarily knowing who the author was or the publisher. And there are risks in bypassing human facilitators and curators of knowledge that the AIs rely on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I can't believe that this is still a problem, but it is. I was at a dinner with academic friends recently, and they were telling me I never go to the library. I don't have to because everything is freely available on the web. So I was saying, well, did you know that, your university, it was Oxford, I think, they put a lot of time and effort and energy giving you easy access. They license
Right.
content, they index it, they make it discoverable, they have authentication systems that get you straight into the content, and you're not really aware of that. AI sort of takes that to a whole nother level. You don't
Right.
have to be aware at all that there's a network of people who have created that content and curated it and made it available and look after it for the long term. And I do wonder what the technology companies, how we're going to need to influence them and interact with them to encourage them to design some clever coding to get those machines thinking about these kinds of human considerations, along with the content integrity, along with the technical approaches to surfacing content
Right.
and improving its quality and consistency.
Right. Right. That's a fascinating topic. I think we can have a whole conversation. But just we almost at the end of our time. I was wondering if there's any kind of message to our audience on this call, Luis, coming from you as an academic, as someone who's been writing about preservation and repositories, to leave with our audience today.
Okay. Well, I think first of all, repositories and preservation are now essential infrastructures for our society, meaning that if our society is getting to a post-digital paradigm in which the digital is in all aspects of our life, we have a cultural heritage that is intrinsically digital. And so the challenge is that the long-term access
Hmm.
is should not be considered a technical feature, is particularly an organizational commitment, because
Yes.
as I've said before, policies can create the plans drive the actions and the sustained resources to monitor and to adapt technology changes. When the repositories do standardize content and the metadata and then connect it to trusted preservation networks, we move from an aspirational access to an
Mm.
durable, future-ready stewardship and scholarly and cultural memory. Or so uh, there is also the questions of how the digital divide uh, might
Right.
bring some problems into show the different views of the society.
Hmm.
So we don't have only one answer or one truth, but
True.
all overall different versions or aspects or perspectives of our society, of our actions, of our heritage and history. And so this has we should focus also on being certain that we are providing ways to preserve different views
Right.
from this digital aspect,
Right.
even from the fringes of society.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Alicia, I think, yeah,
I was
I would
hoping we'd
agree.
come on to exactly that topic, Luis. And this is where the international network of repositories seem to me to be really incredibly powerful, locally grounded curators of digital content, thinking about what it's important to collect and make accessible in the present that can collaborate actually on preservation for future generations. And that gives us some fantastic opportunities to be more mindful of what we're collecting. So at CLOCKSS, for example, when Gally joined us, she did some incredible, helpful analyses about biases in our collecting. It wasn't conscious bias, but it was unconscious bias. So content authored and published in the global south, relatively underrepresented. Certain languages for academic material, English being overrepresented, and different critical perspectives missing, actually, though we didn't have a sufficient representation of books with a critical perspective, a feminist perspective. And so, Gally, thank you. I don't thank you often enough for that. It was really enlightening to be reminded that there are these huge opportunities when you're collecting digital material, but we need to challenge ourselves constantly to be more mindful to make sure that it's representative. Otherwise, we'll be preserving a very biased, partial view of the scholarly record for future generations. And that's not good
Right.
enough, actually.
Right, right. And you know, the whole idea of collection management and being aware and striving for balance is something that, you know, is good for the library, the repository, and preservation. It has to be, I believe, also across the board. And, you know, for all of our participants out there, we have been working really hard to outreach the global south and other regions in the Gulf and Middle East in order to bring in and preserve cultural heritage, scholarly communications from around the globe, and we're still working really hard to do that. So, well, I want, yeah, yeah,
Gally,
yeah.
sorry, it's
Go
not
ahead.
just about collecting
Yeah,
materials, it's about meaningfully engaging with
right.
curators in these parts of the world to understand what they find valuable to preserve and
Yes,
to recognize that without those voices and perspectives, then it's not a neutral decision what gets collected.
exactly. Very well. We're very well said. So we are at the end here. I'm going to open the floor for questions while I stop the recording.